The first time I saw him, it was 7:23 on a Tuesday morning in September, and I was in the middle of the worst shift of my life. My name is Alex Morgan. I'm 26 years old, and I'd been working at Riverside Coffee for exactly 3 weeks. 3 weeks of learning complicated drink orders, dealing with the ancient espresso machine that had a personal vendetta against me, and trying to remember which regulars liked their coffee at exactly 160 degrees versus 170 degrees. That particular Tuesday, everything that could go wrong had gone wrong. I'd burned my hand on the steam wand, dropped a full gallon of milk on the floor, and somehow managed to give 3 different customers the wrong drinks. My coworker Mia had called in sick, leaving me alone during the morning rush, and I was one cranky customer away from having a complete breakdown. Then he walked in. I noticed him immediately, which was unusual. During the morning rush, customers blurred together into a parade of caffeine-desperate faces and impatient sighs. But something about him made me look up from the espresso machine I'd been wrestling with. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, with dark curly hair that looked like he'd run his fingers through it a few times. Warm brown eyes, and the kind of face that seemed designed to make a mess of your concentration. He wore a navy blue sweater and jeans, carried a leather messenger bag, and had the slightly rumpled look of someone who'd just woken up but somehow made it work. He joined the line of about 8 people, pulled out his phone, and started scrolling, completely oblivious to the effect he was having on my ability to function like a normal human being. Focus, Alex, I told myself. You're at work. This is literally the worst time to notice how attractive someone is. But as the line moved forward and he got closer to the counter, I found myself getting increasingly nervous. My hands, which had been relatively steady despite the chaos, suddenly felt clumsy. I messed up a cappuccino too much foam and had to remake it while the customer watched with barely concealed irritation. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was probably only 10 minutes, he reached the counter. "Good morning," he said, and his voice was warm and a little rough, like he hadn't been awake very long. He had a slight smile that reached his eyes. "How are you doing?" The question caught me off guard. Most customers during the morning rush just barked their orders and stared at their phones. Actually asking how I was doing felt almost revolutionary. "Hanging in there," I said honestly, then immediately regretted it. "Too much information, Alex. What can I get for you?" "Large coffee, black, and ... He glanced at the pastry case, one of those blueberry muffins. The one that looks like it's mostly muffin top. I couldn't help but smile. "You have good taste. The muffin top is the best part." "Exactly. Why should I have to eat the bottom part just to get to the good stuff? This is revolutionary thinking. You might change the entire muffin industry." He laughed, a genuine warm sound that made something flutter in my chest. "I'll take that as a compliment." I rang him up, trying not to notice how his fingers brushed mine when he handed me his card, and definitely not thinking about how nice his smile was or how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he laughed. "Name for the order?" I asked, marker poised over the cup. "Daniel." I wrote his name on the cup, trying to make my handwriting look neat despite my nervousness, and handed him his muffin. "Coffee will be ready in just a minute. Double quotes. Thanks. ... He glanced at my name tag. "Alex, I appreciate you holding it together during the rush." "You can tell I'm barely holding it together." "Everyone's barely holding it together. You're just honest about it. It's refreshing." He moved down to the pickup area, and I forced myself to focus on making his coffee instead of watching him. Just a simple black coffee. I could do this without messing it up somehow. I managed to pour him a perfect cup, not too hot, filled to just the right level, lid secured properly. "Small victories, Daniel," I called out. He collected his coffee, gave me another one of those smiles that made my heart do stupid things, and headed toward the door. "Have a good day, Alex." "You too," I managed to say. Watching him leave, Mia's replacement for the shift, Josh, appeared from the back room at that exact moment and caught me staring. "Who was that?" he asked with a knowing grin. "Just a customer." I'm hung. "You're blushing?" "I am not." "You absolutely are. And you have that look." "What look?" I just met someone cute, and now I'm going to think about them for the rest of my shift. Look, threw a towel at him. Get back to work. But he wasn't wrong. Daniel came back the next day. And the day after that, and the day after that, within 2 weeks, I realized he was a regular 7:23 a.m., Tuesday through Friday. Like clockwork. Same order every time. Large black coffee and a blueberry muffin top. We'd started actually selling just the tops after his comment, and they were surprisingly popular. "Morning, Alex," he'd say, with that same warm smile. "Morning, Daniel." The usual, "Please." It became a comfortable routine. He'd ask how I was doing, and actually seem interested in the answer. I'd make small talk while preparing his order. Learning little details about his life in fragments, he was a graphic designer who worked from a home office, which explained the casual dress and flexible schedule. The coffee shop was his excuse to leave the house and interact with actual humans. He'd lived in Portland for 3 years, originally from Sacramento. He had a cat named Pixel who was, according to him, an absolute menace, but I love him anyway. I found myself looking forward to his visits with an intensity that probably wasn't healthy. On the days he didn't come in weekends, or the occasional weekday when something disrupted his routine, I felt oddly disappointed. "Your boyfriend's here," Josh would announce whenever Daniel walked in, which never failed to make me panic. "He's not my boyfriend. He's just a regular customer. A regular customer you make moon eyes at every single day." "I do not make moon eyes." "Alex, you literally stop mid-sentence when he walks in. It's adorable and also kind of sad. I hate you. You love me. And you love him, apparently." I did not love Daniel. That would be ridiculous. I barely knew him. We'd never had a conversation that lasted longer than 5 minutes. He probably didn't even think about me outside of our brief morning interactions. But I definitely had a crush on him. A big, stupid, hopeless crush on a customer who was probably straight and definitely out of my league. By November, 3 months after Daniel had first walked into Riverside Coffee, I developed what I can only describe as an encyclopedic knowledge of everything about him. I knew he liked his coffee exactly 175 degrees, not too hot, but hot enough to stay warm during his walk home. I knew he was left-handed because of how he held his cup. I knew he had a sister in Seattle he visited once a month because he'd mentioned needing to skip his Friday coffee run. I knew his birthday was in October because he'd come in looking tired and mentioned it being the big 2 to 8. I knew the difference between his good morning smile, relaxed, reaching his eyes, and his I'm stressed but being polite smile tighter, not quite reaching his eyes. I knew when he had a big project deadline because he'd order a second coffee around 10 a.m. I knew he preferred the table by the window where he could watch people walking by. I also knew I was in way too deep for what was essentially a professional acquaintance. "Should ask him out," Mia said one day during our overlap shift. She'd been watching me watch Daniel read at his usual table. "No, absolutely not." "Why not?" "He's clearly interested in you. He's polite." "That's different from interested." "Alex, he comes in at exactly the same time every day. He always uses your line even when Josh's line is shorter. He asks about your life. He remembers things you tell him. Those are signs. Or he's just a nice person who appreciates consistency." Mia gave me a look that clearly said I was being deliberately obtuse. "You're never going to know unless you try." And ruin the one good thing about my morning shifts? No thank you. At least this way, I get to see him every day. If I ask him out and he says no, it'll be awkward forever. Or he says yes, and you get to actually date him instead of just making his. Coffee. Not worth the risk. As December arrived and brought with it holiday crowds and festive drinks and Daniel wearing sweaters that should have been illegal for how good they looked on him, I started wondering if maybe Mia had a point, one particularly busy Friday morning. I was juggling 5 drink orders when Daniel came in. The line was long, extending almost to the door, and I was stressed about keeping up with demand. "Alex, I need a triple shot peppermint mocha with soy milk and extra whip," Josh called out. "Got it, wait. Did they want it extra hot? No, that was the last one. I was steaming milk and pulling espresso shots when I heard a familiar voice. Hey, no cutting. Line starts back there. Looked up to see Daniel had been waiting patiently in. Line speaking to a businessman who'd tried to cut ahead. In a hurry, the businessman said dismissively. We're all in a hurry. That's why we're in line. Look, I don't have time for. Then you should have left your house earlier. Daniel's voice was polite but firm. Back of the line. The businessman looked like he wanted to argue, but something about Daniel's stance-cum but immovable made him reconsider. He muttered something under his breath and stalked to the back of the line. Daniel caught my eye and gave me a small smile and a shrug, as if to say some people. That gesture standing up to someone being rude. Defending the basic social contract of waiting in line, doing it without being asked made my heart do a complicated flip. When he finally reached the counter, I had his order already prepared. You didn't have to do that, I said, handing him his coffee. Someone did. That guy was being a jerk. He accepted the cup. Besides, you looked stressed and that wasn't helping.
Ow.
My hero, I said, trying to make it sound joking, even though I kind of meant it. Just a concerned citizen doing his part to maintain coffee shop etiquette. He picked up his muffin top. Have a good weekend, Alex. You too, Daniel. As he left, Mia materialized beside me. Did you see that? See what? He defended you. He stood up to that rude guy for you. He stood up for basic decency and line formation. Come on. He likes you. He's just a good person. He's a good person who likes you specifically. I wanted to believe her. But wanting something doesn't make it true, and I'd learned a long time ago not to read too much into people's kindness. Sometimes nice people are just nice people. Still. That night, I lay in bed replaying the moment the way Daniel had stood up for basic fairness, the way he'd smiled at me afterward, the way he'd noticed I was stressed. Maybe a small voice in my head whispered, maybe Mia's right, but I pushed that voice away. Hope was dangerous. Hope led to disappointment. Better to just enjoy what I had, a pleasant routine with a kind, attractive customer, than to risk it by wanting more. In January, something shifted. Daniel had been coming to Riverside Coffee for 4 months, and our interactions had settled into a comfortable pattern. But one Tuesday morning, he came in looking different, tired in a way that seemed deeper than just physical exhaustion. Morning, he said, but his usual smile was missing. Morning. The usual? Actually, can you make it to Coffee's today? And maybe add a shot of espresso to mine? I studied his face. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his hair was messier than normal, like he really had just rolled out of bed. Rough night? Rough week. He ran a hand through his hair. My sister's going through a divorce, and I've been helping her move out of her place. Lots of late-night phone calls and emergency trips to Seattle. I'm sorry. That sounds really hard, it is. He managed a small smile. But she's better off without him. He was. He trailed off, seeming to realize he was sharing more than usual. Sorry, you don't need to hear about my family drama. Hey, I asked. And for what it's worth, you sound like a really good brother. His expression softened. Thanks, Alex. That means a lot, actually. I made his 2 coffees, 1 regular. One with an extra shot dand on impulse, grabbed one of the chocolate croissants from the case. This one's on the house, I said, handing it to him, along with his coffees. Sounds like you could use some chocolate. He looked genuinely touched. You don't have to, I know. But you've been coming here for months. You're always kind, even when you don't have to be. And you defended me from that line-cutting guy. Consider it the least I can do. Thank you. He held my gaze for a moment longer than necessary. Really? After that day, something changed between us. Our conversations got longer, more personal. He told me about his design work, the frustration of difficult clients, and the satisfaction of a project coming together perfectly. I told him about my dreams of eventually opening my own coffee shop, something smaller and more community-focused than Riverside. You'd be great at that, he said one morning. You have a gift for making people feel welcome? You think so? Definitely. Every time I come in here, even if I'm having a terrible day, talking to you makes it better. I felt my face heat. That's really nice of you to say, I mean it. And the way he looked at me made me think maybe, just maybe he did. We started sharing recommendations. He told me about design podcasts I might like. I told him about a new coffee roaster in town he should try. He mentioned a graphic novel series he loved, and I actually went out and bought the first volume. When I casually mentioned I'd started reading it, his face lit up in a way that made my chest ache. "What did you think?" he asked eagerly. "I'm only 3 chapters in, but I'm already hooked. The art style is incredible, right? The way the artist uses negative space is brilliant. And just wait until you get to issue 4. There's this panel sequence that absolutely broke me." We spent the next 10 minutes talking about the series while the line behind him grew longer. He didn't seem to notice, and honestly neither did I. Josh eventually had to pointedly clear his throat to remind me there were other customers waiting.
Oh, yeah.
"Sorry," Daniel said, stepping aside. "I got carried away. Don't apologize. I love talking about this stuff. Hey, maybe we could talk about it more sometime." He said it casually, but there was something hopeful in his expression. My heart started racing. Was he asking to hang out outside of the coffee shop? "Yeah," I managed to say. "I'd like that. Cool. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be here." After he left, Josh appeared at my elbow. "Did he just ask you out?" "No, we were talking about a graphic novel series, and he suggested we could talk about it more, which is another way of asking you out. Or it's literally just wanting to talk about comics." "Alex, I swear to God, you are the most oblivious person I've ever met." Maybe I was oblivious. Or maybe I was just scared to hope for something that seemed too good to be true. February brought rain and gray skies, but also a warmth to Daniel's visits that made even the dreariest mornings feel brighter. We'd fallen into an easy rhythm of longer conversations. He'd ask about my day, my plans for the weekend, my thoughts on random topics. I'd learn more about him, his love of old movies, his terrible cooking skills, his habit of staying up too late reading. "You should just accept that you're a night owl," I told him one morning when he came in looking particularly tired. "But I have to be functional during the day. Society demands it. Society is overrated. Embrace the night owl life." It's easy for you to say. "You're here at 6 a.m. making coffee? Fair point. But I'm a morning person. Some of us are just wired differently. How are you so chipper this early?" "Coffee?" "Lots of coffee," he laughed. And I realized that making him laugh had become one of my favorite parts of the day. One Thursday in late February, he came in looking excited. "Guess what?" he said as soon as he reached the counter. "You finally taught Pixel to stop knocking things off your desk. Even better, I finished that big project I've been working on for months. The client loved it. I'm getting paid way more than I expected. I have the whole weekend free for the first time in forever." "Daniel, that's amazing. Congratulations." "Thanks. I'm thinking of celebrating. There's this new art exhibit opening downtown tomorrow, night photography and mixed media installations. Want to come with me?" The question hung in the air between us. This was it. This was definitely, explicitly, an invitation to do something together outside of our coffee shop routine. "As in, like a date?" I asked, my voice coming out smaller than I intended. He smiled, and there was something nervous but hopeful in it. "Yeah, as a date. If you want it to be." My heart was pounding so hard I was sure everyone in the coffee shop could hear it. "I would love that." His smile grew wider. "Really? Really? I've been hoping you'd ask. You have?" He looked genuinely surprised. "Daniel," I glanced around at the line forming behind him, suddenly aware that we had an audience. "Can we talk about this when you're not holding up the line?" "Right. Yes, of course." He pulled out his phone. "What's your number? I'll text you the details." With shaking hands, I wrote my number on his cup. He took a photo of it with his phone, grinning the whole time. "I'll text you tonight," he promised. "I'll be waiting." After he left, I stood there in a daze until Josh physically turned me around to face the next customer. "Did that just happen?" I asked him. "That just happened. You have a date with your regular?" "I have a date with Daniel."
Natalie.
The rest of my shift passed in a blur. I couldn't focus on anything except the fact that Daniel had asked me out. Actual Daniel, who I'd been daydreaming about for months, had asked me on an actual date. My phone buzzed around 7 p.m. that night. Unknown number. Hey, it's Daniel from the coffee shop. The exhibit opens at 7 tomorrow. Want to meet there around 7:30? I saved his number immediately and typed back, me, perfect. Should I dress up, or is it casual? Daniel, casual is fine. It's a gallery, not the opera. Though you'd probably look great in formal wear too. Daniel, that came out wrong. You look great all the time. I mean, not that I'm constantly judging your appearance. I just meant Daniel. I'm going to stop texting now before I make this worse. I laughed out loud, charmed by his nervous rambling. Me, for the record, I think you look great all the time too. See you tomorrow at 7:30, Daniel. Can't wait. I spent the next 24 hours in a state of excited anxiety. I changed outfits 4 times before settling. On dark jeans and a fitted sweater that I hoped struck the right balance between casual and I tried but not too hard. Arrived at the gallery at exactly 7:30 to find Daniel already waiting outside, looking unfairly attractive in a charcoal gray button-down and jeans. "Hi," he said, and his smile was warm and a little nervous. "Hi." We stood there grinning at each other like idiots for a moment before he gestured toward the entrance. "Should we go in?" "Lead the way." The exhibit was stunning large-scale photographs mixed with sculptural elements exploring themes of urban isolation and human connection. We wandered through the gallery, sometimes commenting on pieces, sometimes just experiencing them in comfortable silence. At one particularly striking photograph, a person sitting alone in a crowded subway car, light falling across their face in a way that made them seem both lonely and beautiful. Daniel stopped and stared for a long time. "What are you thinking?" I asked quietly. "That this is what it felt like before I started coming to your coffee shop," he said. "Surrounded by people but not really connecting with any of them. Going through the motions." I looked at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his admission. And now, he turned to face me fully. Now I have something to look forward to every morning. Someone who actually sees me, not just as a customer or a project deadline, but as a person. My chest felt tight. Daniel, ... I know we've only really known each other for a few months, and most of that has been in 5-minute conversations over coffee. But I feel more connected to you than I have to anyone in years. He ran a hand through his hair, that nervous gesture I'd come to know so well. "Is that crazy?" "No," I said softly. "It's not crazy. I feel the same way." His expression shifted from nervous to hopeful. Yeah, you've been the best part of my day for months now." I kept trying to tell myself it was just a work crush, that I was reading too much into friendly customer interactions. "But Daniel, I really like you. I really like you too." We stood there in the middle of the gallery, surrounded by art and other people, just smiling at each other like the rest of the world had faded away. "Want to get dinner after this?" he asked. "I'd love to." We ended up at a cozy Italian restaurant a few blocks from the gallery, talking for hours over pasta and wine. The conversation flowed as easily as it did at the coffee shop, but deeper now. More personal without the constraint of a line of customers waiting behind him. He told me about growing up in Sacramento. About coming out to his family in college. They'd been supportive but confused. About the loneliness of moving to Portland and trying to build a new life. I told him about my own journey coming out in high school, the complicated relationship with my parents who still struggled to fully accept me, my dreams of someday owning my own business. "You're going to do it," he said with certainty. "The coffee shop thing. I can tell. You have that energy, like you're meant to create spaces where people feel at home." "That's exactly what I want," I said, surprised by how well he'd articulated something I'd struggled to put into words. Not just serving coffee, but building community, making people feel less alone. "Oh, you already do that. You did it for me." The way he looked at me when he said it made my heart race. We closed down the restaurant, reluctant to end the evening. He walked me to my car. And we stood in the parking lot talking for another 30 minutes before finally admitting we should probably go home. I had a really great time tonight, Daniel said. Me too. Can we do this again? Soon. How about tomorrow? He laughed. I was trying to play it cool and not seem too eager, but yes, absolutely. Tomorrow works. Your place or mine? We could cook dinner at my place? Well, I say cook, but really I mean I'll try not to burn whatever we attempt to make while you do most of the actual cooking. That sounds perfect. We stood there for another moment, and I wondered if he was going to kiss me. I desperately wanted him to kiss me, but he seemed nervous, uncertain. So I made the decision for both of us. I stepped closer and kissed him, soft and brief but full of promise. When we broke apart, he was smiling. I've wanted to do that since October. October? That's so specific. October 15th, to be exact. You were wearing this blue flannel shirt and you laughed at something I said. And I thought, oh no, I'm completely gone for this person. I remember that day, I admitted. You told me about Pixel getting stuck in a box, and you did this impression of his confused meowing. You remember that? Daniel, I remember everything about our conversations. I've been keeping a mental file labeled things about Daniel for months now. He kissed me again, longer this time, his hands gentle on my face. Best decision I ever made, walking into that coffee shop. Best booking error the universe ever made. Putting us in each other's lives. We finally said goodnight, but I drove home with a stupid smile on my face that lasted well into the next day. The next few weeks were a blur of happiness I hadn't known was possible. Daniel still came to the coffee shop every morning. But now our interactions had an added layer and side jokes that made us smile. Casual touches that lingered just a second longer than necessary. The awareness that we had plans to see each other outside of work. You two are disgustingly cute. Mia informed me one morning after watching Daniel kiss my cheek before leaving with his coffee. Sorry, not sorry. Don't apologize. It's adorable. I'm just saying, if you start making out in front of the espresso machine, I'm going to have to intervene. Noted. But she was right. We were kind of disgustingly cute. We saw each other almost every day, alternating between his place and mine, cooking meals together, or rather, him watching me cook while providing commentary, watching movies, talking for hours about everything and nothing. I met Pixel, who was indeed an absolute menace and who I loved immediately. Daniel met my cat Luna, who was significantly better behaved but also significantly less entertaining. Your cat is judging me. Daniel said the first time Luna stared at him unblinkingly for 5 straight minutes. She judges everyone. It's her primary hobby. I need to win her over. Good luck. She's picky about who she likes. But by the end of that first visit, Luna was curled up on Daniel's lap, purring contentedly while he absently scratched behind her ears. I think you've been approved, I said. This is a significant honor. I'm taking it very seriously. We fell into an easy rhythm. Weekday mornings at the coffee shop, evenings together when our schedules aligned, lazy weekend mornings that stretched into afternoons. We went to concerts and art exhibits, tried new restaurants, took walks along the river, spent entire Sundays reading side by side on his couch. It felt natural and right in a way, as nothing ever had before. One evening in March, about a month into dating, we were cooking dinner at his apartment, or more accurately, I was cooking while he sat on the counter providing moral support and occasionally handing me ingredients. Hey, can I ask you something? He said suddenly. Always. What made you finally believe I was interested in you? I was trying to flirt for months, but you seemed convinced I was just being friendly. I thought about it while stirring the pasta sauce. Honestly, it wasn't until you explicitly asked me to the art exhibit that I let myself believe it. Before that, I kept telling myself I was reading too much into things. Why? Scared, I guess? I've had crushes on people before where I convinced myself they were interested, only to be completely wrong. It's embarrassing and painful, and I didn't want to risk making things awkward with you. I turned to face him. You were too important. Even just as the nice regular who made my mornings better. I didn't want to lose that. He reached out and pulled me closer, his legs on either side of me. For what it's worth, I was terrified too. I kept almost asking you out and then chickening out. I must have rehearsed that invitation to the exhibit 100 times. Really? You seemed so casual about it. That was entirely an act. Inside, I was panicking. I was sure you were going to say no. I was sure you'd never ask. You kissed me softly. I'm glad one of us was finally brave enough, me too. Pasta timer went off, and I reluctantly pulled away to deal with dinner. But as we ate together at his small kitchen table, talking and laughing and stealing bites from each other's plates, I felt a contentment I'd never experienced before. This was what I'd been waiting for. Not just romance, not just attraction, but genuine connection with someone who saw me clearly and chose me anyway. In April, Daniel asked if I wanted to meet his sister. She's coming to town for the weekend, he explained over coffee one morning, and she keeps asking about you. Apparently, I talk about you constantly. You talk about me to your sister. I talk about you to everyone. My mom knows your favorite type of coffee bean. My best friend from college knows about Luna's judging habits. You're kind of my favorite topic. My heart melted a little. I'd love to meet her. Claire arrived that Friday, and I was immediately nervous. This was Daniel's sister, the person he'd been supporting through her divorce. Someone who clearly meant everything to him. I wanted her to like me. We met for brunch at a place downtown that was famous for their French toast. Claire was tall like Daniel, with the same warm eyes and easy smile, though her hair was lighter and she had more freckles. "So you're Alex," she said, shaking my hand. "I've heard so much about you. Daniel literally cannot shut up about you." "It's adorable and also slightly annoying," Claire Daniel said, looking embarrassed. "What?" "It's true. Last week you spent 20 minutes telling me about how Alex organized the coffee shop's holiday drink menu by flavor profile. 20 minutes. In my defense, it is a superior organizational system." "See," Daniel said to his sister, "it's interesting. You're both adorable nerds, and I'm here for it." Brunch ended up being wonderful. Claire was funny and warm, asking me genuine questions about my life, and seeming actually interested in the answers. She told embarrassing stories about Daniel's childhood that made him blush, and made me fall even more in love with him. He was such a serious kid, she said, always making these elaborate art projects and getting upset if they didn't turn out exactly like he'd envisioned. One time he spent 3 days building a model of the solar system and then cried when he realized he'd made Neptune the wrong shade of blue. "I was 8, Daniel protested. "And Neptune is a very specific color. He's still like that with his design work," Claire told me. "Obsessive perfectionist. But it's one of the things that makes him great at what he does." After brunch, as we were saying goodbye, Claire pulled me aside while Daniel was looking at his phone. "He's really happy with you," she said quietly. "I haven't seen him this happy in years. Maybe ever. He makes me really happy too." "Good, because he's my little brother, and if you hurt him, I'll have to hurt you," noted. "But I don't think you will. I can see how you look at him." The following week, I introduced Daniel to my best friend Rachel, who I'd been neglecting since we'd started dating. "So this is the famous barista boyfriend," she said when we met for drinks. "I prefer boyfriend who happens to have been a customer," Daniel said with a smile, much less wordy than my version. Rachel and Daniel hit it off immediately, bonding over their shared love of true crime podcasts and their mutual agreement that pineapple on pizza was a crime against nature. By the end of the evening, they were already making plans to watch a documentary together. "I like him," Rachel told me when Daniel went to the bathroom. "He's good for you. You're lighter when you're with him? Lighter? Yeah, like you're not carrying around so much weight. You smile more, you laugh easier. It's nice to see." I hadn't realized I'd been carrying weight until she mentioned it. But she was right, being with Daniel did make everything feel easier. Brighter, more manageable. The hardest introduction came in May. When my parents came to visit from Salem, I'd been putting it off, nervous about how my father would react to meeting Daniel. My dad had struggled with my sexuality since I came out at 17, and while he'd eventually reached a place of grudging acceptance, he'd never been comfortable with any of my relationships. "Are you sure you want me there?" Daniel asked when I invited him to dinner with my parents. "I'm sure. They need to know you're important to me. And honestly, I think my mom will love you. And your dad. My dad is ... complicated, but he's trying. I think dinner was at a restaurant downtown. My mom arrived and immediately hugged Daniel like they were old friends, asking him questions about his work and his family and telling him embarrassing stories about me as a child. My dad was more reserved, shaking Daniel's hand and then largely staying quiet throughout the meal. But toward the end of dinner, my dad surprised me. "You're a designer," he said to Daniel. "What kind of design?" "Graphic design, mostly digital. I do branding, website design, some illustration work. It's a real career. Making enough to live on?" "Dad," I said warningly. "It's okay," Daniel said, and his voice was calm but firm. "Yes, it's a real career. I'm fortunate enough to make a good living doing work I'm passionate about. Not everyone gets that opportunity, and I don't take it for granted." My dad nodded slowly, seeming to respect the direct answer. "And you met at Alex's coffee shop?" "I did. Best coffee I've ever had. Alex is the reason I'm probably over-caffeinated most days." "Alex is good at that," my mom said warmly. "Making people feel welcome. He really is." After dinner, as we were saying goodbye in the parking lot, my dad pulled me aside. "Seems like a good person," he said quietly. "He is, Dad. And he makes you happy. Really happy." My dad was quiet for a moment, and I could see him struggling with something internal. "Finally," he said. "That's what matters then." It wasn't a grand declaration of acceptance. It wasn't everything I'd hoped for. But it was something, and coming from my dad, it felt significant. In the car on the way back to my apartment, Daniel reached over and took my hand. "That went better than you expected?" he asked. "Way better. My dad actually talked to you." "That's huge. Your mom is wonderful, by the way. She showed me approximately 50 pictures of you as a kid. Oh God. Including one where you're dressed as a coffee bean for Halloween when you were 7. She didn't." "It was adorable. I'm never introducing you to anyone ever again." He laughed and squeezed my hand. "Too late. I'm already invested in your embarrassing childhood stories." It happened on a Saturday in June. 6 months after our first date, we were at my apartment, cooking breakfast together, or rather. Daniel was attempting to flip pancakes while I made coffee and tried not to laugh at his concentration face. "These are going to be perfect," he insisted, even though the first 3 had been decidedly imperfect. "I believe in you. Your lack of conviction is noted." He flipped the pancake, and miraculously it landed correctly. He turned to me with a triumphant grin. "Did you see that?" "I saw it. You're a pancake master. I'm adding this to my resume." I laughed. And he set down the spatula and pulled me into a hug, swaying slightly to music only he could hear. "I love this," he said softly. "What? Making pancakes?" "This us. Saturday mornings with you. The way you laugh at my terrible cooking, but never make me feel bad about it. The way you always make sure my coffee is exactly how I like it, even though I've had it the same way for a year. The way you fit perfectly in my arms." He pulled back to look at me. "I love you, Alex." My breath caught. We'd been dancing around those words for weeks, both of us clearly feeling them, but neither brave enough to say them first.
Hey.
"I love you too," I said. It felt like my chest might burst from how much I meant it. "I have for a while now, yeah. Yeah, probably since that day you defended the coffee shop line against that rude businessman. But definitely by our first date." He kissed me soft and sweet and full of promise. "I love you," he said again, like he needed to make sure I heard it. "I love you too." The pancakes burned while we stood there kissing in my kitchen. But neither of us cared. The following February marked a year since our first date. And Daniel insisted on making it special. "I have a surprise for you," he said mysteriously when he picked me up that evening. "What kind of surprise?" "The kind that you'll find out about when we get there." He drove us downtown, and I slowly realized where we were going, the same art gallery where we'd had our first date. "They have a new exhibit," he explained. I thought it would be nice to come back to where it all started. The new exhibit was about different forms of communication letters, texts, photographs, art we wandered through, holding hands, occasionally stopping to discuss a particular piece. Near the end of the exhibit, Daniel stopped in front of a large photograph of a coffee cup with a name written on it in marker. "This one's my favorite," he said. I looked at it more closely and felt my heart stop. The name on the cup was Daniel, and the handwriting looked suspiciously like mine. "Is this?" "From our first week. I kept the cup because I thought your handwriting was beautiful. And because that morning was the first time I'd felt genuinely hopeful about something in months." He turned to me. "I never told you, but I was pretty lonely before I met you. Going through the motions, not really connecting with anyone. And then you made me a simple cup of coffee and asked how I was doing like you actually cared about the answer, and something shifted. Daniel, ... I'm not done." He took my hand. "This year with you has been the best year of my life. You make every day better just by being in it. You support my dreams, you laugh at my terrible jokes, you've taught me what real partnership looks like. And I know it might be early, and we're still young, but I'm completely certain about this about us." He pulled a small box from his pocket, and my breath caught. "Not proposing," he said quickly. "We've talked about wanting to wait on that. But I wanted to give you something that shows how serious I am about building a future with you." He opened the box to reveal a simple silver ring with a small stone. "It's a promise ring. A promise that I'm in this for the long haul. That I'm going to keep choosing you every day for as long as you'll have me." I was crying now, happy tears streaming down my face. "I'll have you forever if you'll let me."
Oh.
He slipped the ring on my finger, and I pulled him into a kiss that I hoped conveyed everything I was feeling: love and gratitude and certainty and joy. "I love you," I said when we finally broke apart. "I love you too. Even though you still won't admit that I'm better at making pancakes than you are, because you're objectively not."
Agree to disagree.
We spent the rest of the evening at the gallery, talking and laughing and planning our future. And when we finally left, walking hand in hand into the February night, I thought about how all of this love, this life, this future had started with a simple cup of coffee and a willingness to hope for something more. I'm writing this from the back office of my coffee shop, not Riverside, but Morning Light Coffee. The place I opened 2 years ago with Daniel's encouragement and support. It's smaller than Riverside, more intimate. With mismatched furniture and local art on the walls and a community bulletin board where people can post about events or look for roommates or offer services. It's everything I dreamed it would be. Daniel works from a table in the corner most days, his laptop set up next to his ever-present coffee cup with his name written on it in my handwriting. Sometimes customers ask if we're Toj. And we smile and say yes, enjoying the way people react to our customer meets barista. Origin story. We got engaged 6 months ago, a proper proposal this time. With Daniel getting down on one knee at the spot by the river where we had our first conversation outside of the coffee shop. The wedding is planned for next spring, a small ceremony with just our closest friends and family. Claire is my maid of honor. Despite Daniel protesting that maid of honor is a gendered term, and we should call her something else. Rachel is throwing me the world's most extra bachelor party. My parents are both coming, and my dad has even offered to walk me down the aisle, which made me cry when he asked. Pixel and Luna have learned to coexist, mostly by ignoring each other completely, except when they team up to knock things off counters. We're looking at buying a house together, something with a yard and space for Daniel's home office and maybe, someday, room for kids. But the best part of my day is still the morning routine we've maintained since the beginning. Daniel comes in around 7:30, gets in whatever line I'm working, and orders his large black coffee. "How's your morning?" He always asks, even though we woke up together a few hours earlier. "Better now that you're here," I always respond. Because it's true. Some customers have started copying our routine with their own partners, which Daniel finds hilarious and I find touching. We've apparently become relationship goals for the local coffee shop community. Remember when you thought I was just being polite? Daniel said this morning, stealing a kiss before heading to his usual table, "I was convinced you were straight and just really liked coffee. I mean, I do really like coffee. But I loved you more." Loved. Past tense. Love, present tense. Always. And as I watched him settle at his table, pulling out his laptop and his headphones, looking up to smile at me one more time before diving into work, I thought about how grateful I was for that booking error all those years ago, for the courage it took to finally ask him out, for every morning coffee and every evening spent together, and every moment that built this life we're creating. Sometimes the best love stories start with the simplest moments: a cup of coffee, a smile, a willingness to hope that maybe, just maybe, something wonderful is beginning. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that wonderful beginning becomes an even better forever. The end. Asterisk.
Space stage.
Author's note. Thank you for reading Alex and Daniel's story. This is a reminder that love often shows up in the most ordinary places: the coffee shop we visit every morning, the smile from a familiar face, the small kindnesses that accumulate over time. Stay open to possibility. Be brave enough to hope, and remember that sometimes the person you've been waiting for has been right there all along. You just needed the courage to see them clearly. May you all find your own coffee shop romance in whatever form it takes. Asterisk.